Alright, here is the practice test. I'm going to go through this fairly fast, but you'll see what I am doing and what I am talking about for all of these. First of all, coterminal angles, co means 2, and so coterminal angles always add to 360 degrees. So if this is 114, my coterminal angle is this other one. My coterminal angle is this other one. Remember, we're always starting from this x-axis to the right, and my coterminal angle is this one here. So I'm just going to go 360 minus each one of these. Here I'm going to get 246. Here 360 minus this gives me 312. Now again, I'm going clockwise here, so this one is negative. This one I went counterclockwise, so it's positive. This one, if I give you a negative, it's also positive. That's another way to think about it, but also counterclockwise is positive. If I subtract 360, I get 298. Okay? Reference angles are always positive and less than 90 degrees. And really, it's just back to x-axis. Okay? So, from here to the x-axis, which really is 90 minus the angle given. Well, if this is 114, then this is 90, this is 24. How much more does it take to get to the x-axis? It's 66 degrees, okay? Because it has to add up to 90. This is real simple because it's just right back again, which is exactly the same, 48 degrees. And this is the same thing. It's right back to the x-axis, which is the same as this, but again, it's always positive 62 degrees. Converting to radians is just multiplying by pi over 180 and reducing. I'm going to do this fairly quickly. 10 goes into both of those. 2 goes into there 7 times. 2 goes into there 9 times. I get 7 pi over 9. It's just reduced fractions. Here, again, it's 180, sorry. I know 45 goes into both of those, but if you don't, you can put 5 into this 45 times, 5 into there 36 times, and then put 9 into each of them to get 5 pi over 4. Don't lose a silly point. A lot of you did on the quiz. When a negative is given, put a negative in your answer. It's too simple to lose a silly point on. So if this is pi over 180, then the other one is 180 over pi, which makes sense. I talked about how we don't say I went 360 pi degrees. We say we do 360 degrees. The pi's will cancel. You can literally just go 3 times 180 over 4, or you can cross cancel. 4 goes into there and there to give me negative 135 degrees. 2 goes into there and there. 5 times 90 is 450 degrees. Okay. Down at the bottom, you can reduce these. I'm actually putting reduce on the test if necessary. If you don't, it's not going to be the end of the world. I'm not going to take points off. Cosine of A, so from here, adjacent over hypotenuse is 12 over 15. Yes, that reduces, but I'm not going to even show that. Sine of A is opposite over hypotenuse, 9 over 15. Tangent of A is opposite over adjacent, 9 over 12. Cosine of C, so now from here, cosine adjacent over hypotenuse is 9 over 15. Sine of C is opposite over hypotenuse, 12 over 15. And tangent of C is opposite over adjacent, 12 over 9. What you should see here is a reciprocal relationship. Sine of A should be cosine of the other one. Cosine of A should be sine of the other one. And tangent is always going to just flip. So I should get the same things here. Cosine of A, adjacent over hypotenuse, 13 over 85. Sine of A, opposite over hypotenuse, 84 at 85. Now again, that means that cosine of B should be this one, and sine of B should be that one, but we'll double check that. Tangent of A is opposite over adjacent, 84 over 13. You do not need to simplify that unless it goes in perfectly. Cosine of B is adjacent, over hypotenuse. So sure enough, just like I thought, that's what I get. Sine of B from here is opposite over 13 over 85, and tangent should be just the reciprocal from B. Opposite over adjacent is 13 over 84. I didn't show you any of that. I just realized it wasn't on there. But again, these should have reciprocal relationships, but more than anything, go to the angle, opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent. Same thing for that one. There's all the answers, which you will see today anyway. But again, opposite over adjacent, opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse to get my A's, and then I would do the B as well. Okay? Let's go to the next page. Up at the top, first thing I gotta do is label these. This is 1, 1, square root of 2, I did tell you, you need to memorize these. 1 goes across from 30, 2 goes on the hypotenuse, square root of 3 goes there. If you think about it, square root of 4 is 2, so the bigger side should be on across in the bigger angle. And then it's just a matter of going sine of 60. So from here, opposite over hypotenuse, square root of 3 over 2. Cosine of 45, from 45 I go adjacent over hypotenuse. 1 over the square root of 2 is not the answer. I can't have that. So I get square root of 2 over 2. Tangent of 60, so opposite over adjacent. Square root of 3 over 1. I do want you to reduce that. A lot of you did not on the quiz and lost points. Cosine of 30 is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I get square root of 3 over 2 again. Sine of 45 is opposite over hypotenuse. 1 over square root of 2. Well, we did that up here. And then tangent of 30 is opposite over adjacent this way, which again, I cannot have that on the bottom, so I do it to the top and bottom and get square root of 3 over 3. Okay. Now, for the pictures below, the first thing we do is draw the angle out. And we move it down so that I got everything on the camera. So 120 degrees. I start here, I go counterclockwise to 90, and then 120 is 30 more. So when I connect it to the x-axis, that makes this 60 and this 30. And then I'm just going to use the values we have up above to fill in the triangle. Across from 30 is 1, across from 60 is square root of 3, and on the hypotenuse is 2. I'll worry about filling in signs here in a minute. 225, again, counterclockwise 90, 180, this is 270, so 225 is going to be right in between there. Connected up here, ends in 5, it's always a 45. And that's 1, 1, square root of 2. Negative 60, I go down here, connect it. I know it's 60 degrees because I went 60 degrees. Across from there's 1, square root of 3, and 2. Now the key is, anytime I go down or left, it's negative. And anytime I go right or up, it's positive. So here I went up, positive, left, negative. Here I went left and down, so they're both negative. Here I went right and down, so only the down is negative. Then I just look at the angle that's attached to the origin and do the cosine here, adjacent over hypotenuse, negative 1/2. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, negative 1 over negative 1 is 1. Sine of 60 is opposite over hypotenuse, negative square root of 3 over 2. And I'm done. Down at the bottom, first thing I'm going to do is if I look at 14 and 15, the other angle, well, this is 180 degrees in a triangle, minus 90 is 90, and then minus that should give me this, which is 32 degrees. And it's the same thing here. 90 minus 18 will give me 72 degrees there. Now I have to do a little math here to find, I'm going to use this angle through everything. So I'm going to label this opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. To find my adjacent, I'm going to have to use tangent because I have opposite and I need adjacent. So tangent of 58 equals 18 over, I'll call it big A. When the letter is down below, we need to divide. So really, A is 18 divided by tan 58. I do that in my calculator. I get 11.2. Now, if you use 32, you could do that as well. And you'd have tangent of 32 equals A over 18. And you could solve it by multiplying the 2 there. Okay. Let's go to H. I'm going to use 58 again and 18. So I have opposite over hypotenuse, that's sine. Sine of 58 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Again, the letter is down below, so I'm going to divide 18 by sine of 58, and I get 21.2. Then just look at the triangle. The biggest side should be the hypotenuse. Sure enough, that's okay. The smallest angle should have the smallest side across from it, and then I got my medium one. Yep, that seems to be legit. So again here, that 57 is pretty big. This should be bigger than 57. This should be substantially smaller. We'll get to that. So first things first, from 18, which is given, I have opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. So I'm going to do tangent again of 18 equals opposite, I'll put it like this, over adjacent. Now when the letter's up high, you multiply. So the opposite is 57 times tangent of 18. From that, I'm going to get 18.5, which again makes sense. The big angle should have a big side, little angle should have a little side. And this, again, should be bigger yet. Well, I need adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's, cosine of 18 is adjacent over hypotenuse. And again, when the number is down low, then we divide. 57 by cosine of 18. And sure enough, I get 59.9, which isn't much bigger, but 90 degrees isn't much bigger than 72. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. On the last one here, the first thing I want to do is probably figure out the angle. So I'm going to use angle I, and I'm going to label again, this is opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. From I, I've got opposite over hypotenuse, I've got adjacent over hypotenuse. Oh, those are two values I know. So to find the angle, you're going to have one of these problems on the test, I promise. I've got, well, adjacent over hypotenuse. So cosine of I equals 21 over 29. And if you don't remember, to find the angle, which starts with A, you need to use the arc, which starts with A. That's that little -1 thing. So really what I'm doing is taking cosine -1 to this side, and it's canceling. Taking cosine -1 to this side, and when I enter arc cosine of 21 over 29 in my calculator, I get 43.6 degrees. And then 90 minus that 43.6 degrees tells me that this is 46.4. I don't need to reset up a problem with sine or something like that. I need to just solve there. To find that missing side, it's flat out just use the Pythagorean theorem. Could I use one of these angles? Yeah, but I rounded that, so that's not going to be as precise as I'd like it. But if I go, well, I squared plus 21 squared equals 29 squared. Remember, when you're doing the Pythagorean theorem, the hypotenuse is always the value over here. I start doing some math here. I squared plus 441 equals 841, and I subtract 441 from both sides. I get I squared to be 400, and then my last step is the square root, and I get exactly 20. And there's that page. Let's move on to the next page. Setting up some problems here in terms of drawing it out. So I'm going to draw the first three out before I even solve them. I got a 22-foot ladder against a house. Here's my house. Here's my ladder. Now again, it says 22-foot ladder, so there's my ladder against the house. Your ladder's not standing up straight up and down. It would fall over. When it's leaned against the house, it forms a 55-degree angle with the ground. Here's the ground, so your angle should be here. Another reason it cannot be here is all of these start from a horizontal. Okay? So what do I need to know? How far up the side of the house is the ladder? Up the side of the house would be this value here, opposite over hypotenuse, so you need to use sine 55 equals x over 22. When the ladder's up high, you multiply. 22 sine of 55 equals about 18 feet. Okay? Let's find a plane at an altitude of 30,000 feet. Okay, so 30,000 is right there. There's my altitude. And begins a descent. Well, if I'm this high up, boy, this is kind of kooky how this is going to work. I'm going to try this. You can either have, think of how I want to do this triangle here, or this triangle here. Again, it starts from a horizontal line. So I cannot put an angle of 1 here. I can put one here, or I can put one here. If you're using this angle, you better have 89 degrees. Okay? So again, if that's 30,000, then that's 30,000. And it says, how far is the airport from the runway? So I want to find the distance, x. Okay? Horizontal distance. I can't touch it, so it's horizontal. And from here, I'm going to use this, opposite over adjacent. So I got tangent of 1 equals opposite over adjacent. And it's on top, so I need to divide. And I get a big number, 1,718,698.8 feet. That seems like it's huge, but if you think of that in terms of miles, and there's 5,280 miles, or excuse me, feet in a mile, that's only about 20 miles, 25 miles away. That's not that crazy, okay? Or 250 miles, excuse me. Monica's driving up the long hill, so I've got my long hill here, which has an angle of 5 degrees with the ground. Again, that has to go here. It can't go here because it doesn't start from a horizontal. The top of the hill is 800 vertical feet above it. So the top of the hill is 800 vertical feet. Vertical means up and down. How long is the road? Can you touch a road? Yes, I could go outside and touch a road. I can't touch a plane's distance. That's air. There's nothing to touch there. But I can touch a road. That's when the x is on the hypotenuse. Now I've got opposite over hypotenuse, so that's sine again. 800 over x. And again, we divide with that to get 9,178.97, which I'm just going to round to that. And it's okay if you round to the nearest whole number, even on this one, because I didn't say for you to do anything specific. Okay? There's the story problems. Let's get down here. I'm going to label this first. 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 0, negative 1. Cosine is the x value. Sine is the y value. Tangent is y over x. And tangent is always going to be 0 or no solution. Cosine of 180 is the x value at 180, which is just negative 1. I'm going to come back to tangent. Sine of negative 180. Go this one. Sine is just the y value, 0. Cosine of 90. Cosine of 90 is 0 because it's the x value. Sine of 270 is the y value here, which is negative 1. Now for the tangent ones, at 270, right here, it's the y value over the x value. If you go to plug that into your calculator, it's going to say error, divide by 0. That's because you can't divide by 0. So that's undefined. 90 degrees happens to be the same thing. Can't divide by 0. It's undefined. Now, if I said 180, I'd have 0 over 1. That's 0. 0 over 1 is 0. That's okay. You can have that. Down at the bottom. Now, I talked about if sine is increasing, I need to go from negative 1 to 0 to 1. Increasing. Negative 1 to 0 to 1. And this is the y value. This is the x value because it's sine versus cosine. So where on this picture, going clockwise, so going this way, is it going from negative 1 to 0 to 1 in the y? So negative 1 in the y, there's negative 1 to 0 to 1. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of quadrants. The y value from negative 1 to 0 to 1 is increasing in quadrants 2 and 3. That's why C is my answer there. Okay. Now, what about the next one? Well, in 27, which two quadrants does cosine increase? So I got to look for cosine, the x value, to go from negative 1 to 0 to 1. But now I'm going counterclockwise. So I'm going this way. So from negative 1 to 0 to 1, it's in quadrants 3 and 4, and it's D. If it said clockwise, well, it would be this way. It would be 1 and 2, but it doesn't say that. It says counterclockwise. Okay? And that's it. Test is on Friday. Good luck.